Let's bring in Burden Hickok now, a former U.S. diplomat to Iraq, and Bobby Gosha here is an international editor at Time magazine. Burden, when the president is saying that he's not ruling out anything right now when it comes to Iraq, what would you advise him to be his response?
Well, truthfully, it's a little late, and a similar what's been played out in Syria. We advised him in 2010. Constantly from 2009, 2010, that a residual U.S. military force in the north was extremely useful and helpful in maintaining the conflict between the Arabs and the Kurds. Mm-hmm. Now, that obviously, at that time, we thought that was the greatest threat to stability of Iraq. Okay, so now that's kind of in the back burner, but on the other hand, that issue's been resolved because of the Islamists coming in through Anbar and through Mosul. So the Iraqi army lay down their weapons, they flee. That means they've left Kirkuk. And the traditional homeland of the Kurds, they've jumped in there and they're securing Kirkuk. Now, Kirkuk is a home of one of the supergiant oil fields. That pumps out
very important region, Burden. Let's also bring in Bobby Gosha here just for a second here, Bobby. Okay, the Dow is down triple digits, and we got news about an hour or two ago, and you may have known this beforehand, Bobby, I don't know, that Iran is now sending Revolutionary Guard members ostensibly to fight al-Baghdadi. Who is fighting who here?
Well, that's a good question, and if that is indeed true, the London Times were reporting that a couple of hours ago. If that is true, then that could, instead of calming things down, it could make things even worse. A lot of Iraqis, even those who have no truck with this terrorist group, even Shiites who are pro their government, do not want to see Iranian boots on their ground any more than they want to see American boots. Iranian soldiers fighting in Iraq, no matter who they're fighting against, it has the potential to destabilize what is already a pretty chaotic situation.
And what do you think is going to be the knock-on effect on oil production? Because at this stage, a lot of the movement in oil might be psychological, the fear of what could happen. What do you think potentially will happen?
Okay, so let's step back a bit. We're talking about 3.8 million barrels of oil out of Iraq total. Now, the potential is much more than that, and this is what they've been working on. Down in Basra in the southern part of Iraq, they were hoping to get, well, at least 4 million this year, but 8 or 10 million over the next few years. But in the reality of today, if all of Iraqi oil is cut off, which is, by the way, kind of a sour crude, it's a discount to Brent. It may not be that disruptive, but what's developing now with the Kurds taking over Kirkuk, well, they're going to secure the northern field. So that's 800,000 barrels a day.
And the pipeline runs through there as well.
And the pipeline, now that's going to be
major pipeline to the port.
It's the only pipeline out of the north. And there was supposed to be a connection from the south to the north. So that's a key pipeline. Now, everybody knows it's been blown up and it's not been operating efficiently. Well, if the Kurds and the Peshmerga, which is not the Iraqi army. The Peshmerga is a serious military force. They will be able to secure the pipeline, and there is an opportunity for Maliki and Barzani in the Kurdistan in Iraq to negotiate a deal that may
very complicated. We should say that we have to say that oil has been higher than this 3 times the past 3 years.
That's right.
Oil's gone up, but it's been $110 a barrel 3 times the past 10 years, and the U.S. economy has continued to move on. Bobby, back to you. Who are these guys? Who's funding this army? A standing army is expensive. Is al-Baghdadi essentially a pirate? Is he looting as he goes along, or is there a nation state that is funding this?
Well, they do get donations from people, the kind of people who were previously giving their money to Osama bin Laden and other terrorist groups. Once these guys began to get successful and started taking territory, a lot of that money starts coming to them. But as we've heard, when they went into Mosul, one of the first things they did, went into the banks and took the money out of there. From some reports, over $500 million worth of Iraqi currency from the banks in Mosul. But they are not a standing army like you and I would think of it. They don't really have to pay salaries and provide for rations. A lot of the people who come fight alongside them are doing so voluntarily. So a lot of the money that they pick up goes towards buying arms and ammunition, goes towards buying communications equipment, because they do need to be able to communicate with each other. They're not paying steady salaries to everybody who's fighting in their ranks.
And Bobby, just to finish up, I mean, as the president is mulling what kind of response is necessary or appropriate at this time, how long does Iraq have to be the U.S.'s problem?
Well, it clearly is not the U.S.'s problem at the moment. But if this guy keeps making these advances, if this group makes these advances, claims territories, sits on top of oil fields and oil refineries, the chances are that then they will begin to get more ambitious and start targeting outside of the Middle East. There's already been a connection to one attack in France. We know that a lot of European fighters are fighting alongside him. We know there are possibly some American volunteers as well. This problem does not stay contained there for very long. This doesn't mean that there have to be U.S. boots on the ground, but it doesn't mean that we can sit back and say that's their fight and it's not ours. If we do that, as we have done in the past historically in places like Afghanistan, those things come back to bite us eventually.
Is it, Burton, and literally a one-word answer if you could here, please, because we're over already, but is it possible with what Bobby just said about robbing the banks? We know a lot of American money went into rebuilding those areas. Is it now possible that this terrorist-led group is essentially using American money to buy weapons to fight in Iraq?
No, no.
Why not? They're robbing banks of $500 million.
Yeah, no, but that's oil money. That's Iraqi oil money. They have a $70 billion import of dollars. Okay. And so that's their money.
Well, that's good to know.
Yes, we've had a lot of money put in there. Yes, I understand that. But 3 years later, this is Iraqi money from their development of oil. But that's what's so important here, exactly what he was saying. Control of those fields, do we really want to have it in the hands of Islamic extremists that are bent on a war?
We may not,
we certainly don't want
we may not have a choice.
Of any extremists.
Well,
we have to leave it there.
It's not just the U.S., it's the West.
Burton, thank you very much for your advice. Thank you, Bobby, for your insight as well.